The Sony A90J versus the LG G1. Both TVs share a new OLED panel, but really couldn't be a whole lot different. And I'm going to show you that and then help you decide which one's right for you. What's up, it's B the Installer, and this is probably the most requested video of the year. The A90J from Sony is turning a lot of heads, but the LG G1 Gallery OLED could be the coolest looking mainstream 4K TV ever. Both TVs are supposed to be game changers with regards to OLED performance, and we'll need to find out if the LG and Sony are bringing the goods. So let's get into all the differences inside and out, and I'll show you a variety of content, and then at the end I'll help you decide which to buy. Make sure to smash the like button as we're getting started, or whenever the video becomes useful. And then make sure to subscribe to my channel and ring the notification bell so you know when I upload a new video or go live to answer questions on which tech to buy. And since this was on everyone's mind as the comparison video, please comment below on what you have learned so far about these two TVs. I have a good feeling this video could be around for a while and that a lot of people will see the comments. So ask questions and feel free to answer some if you can. So first off, these two TVs are very different on the outside. The LG G1 Gallery Series OLED is probably the coolest looking TV ever made to be on a wall. It's less than an inch thick and it has nice round edges that rivals the Samsung frame for design, all while having an amazing picture, of course. The G1 comes with its own mount to keep it flush to the wall, which I'll talk about toward the end. No feet in the box, so if you want to keep it on a stand, you'll have to snag some feet on LG's website. The Sony A90J is a more traditional OLED TV look with the thin panel and the body of the TV being a little thicker in the back. And while many may like it thicker in the back, it makes it a little less attractive on the wall when trying to achieve the flush look. Internally, the A90J has a heatsink, which helps Sony push the panel a little harder, but more or less the A90J looks like a thinner version of their traditional LED panels with the cool angles, the back blacking, and the Bravia logo. The A90J does have feet, of course, that can be raised up or set for a low profile look. The only big downside here is that they're super wide. My 65-inch A90J, which is 57 inches wide, barely fits on this 60-inch wide stand. So you'll need to have a nice sized table in order to make this look good. Both TVs are well organized with USB and HDMI ports facing down or to the side. The A90J has 4 HDMI, but only 2 are HDMI 2.1 for gaming at 4K at 120 frames per second. And one of those 2 is the eARC port, so that can be good and bad. If you plan to get an AVR, then you're able to pass through that HDMI 2.1 through the AVR. But if you wanted to hook up a soundbar, then one of those HDMI 2.1 ports would just be wasted sending sound out. The LG G1 has 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, so you can randomly plug a game console or PC into any of the ports and be confident you'll get all the gaming features that LG offers, including 4K at 120 frames per second, VRR, FreeSync, and G-Sync. Both TVs have the ATSC 3.0 Next Gen tuner. This 4K tuner is sort of a new feature that people are starting to seek on TVs, so take that into consideration. If you're looking for LG only, then the G1 is your only choice as the C1 doesn't offer this tuner. The remotes and speakers are like apples and oranges. The LG G1 Magic Remote is an improvement over previous models, with the more controlled enter button that still tracks up and down as needed, and the cursor is a more subtle outline with an occasional color for contrast versus the red of old. The more square-shaped design of the remote rocks less when on a table, so the occasional bump doesn't trigger the cursor as often. The A90J remote is still unnecessarily big, but Sony makes up for that by adding the backlight and the metal finish. Having both TVs, I can say the backlight alone is a huge benefit for anyone watching TV in the dark. I've heard from some viewers that Sony doesn't offer the backlit remote in certain areas, and it's not available for other models in their lineup, but you can buy it online and it will work for the A80J and the X90J for sure, and likely for any Sony that has Bluetooth capabilities. The Sony A90J also has fantastic sound for a TV. It still may only be 60 watts, but the acoustic vibrating speakers sound great when on a stand or on the wall. Traditionally, sound is sent off the back of the TV or at the bottom, and can quickly get lost in a large room. Direct sound is a huge win here, not to mention that the Sony A90J can also act as a center channel. I haven't given it a shot as a center channel yet, but Techno Dad Chana D said he was pretty surprised how decent it sounded, so I'm excited to give it a whirl with a couple of towers. The LG G1 has downward firing speakers on their panel. They also offer 60 watts, and to be honest, they're not bad either. The G1 doesn't have the bass that the A90J has, but either TV is more than sufficient for watching TVs and even movies and gaming. For those of you who might be buying their first TV in a while, the LG G1 has WebOS 6.0, which is now a full screen interactive page to house all the apps and inputs, as well as personalized content like weather and sports scores. I've mentioned in some of my other LG reviews and comparisons that I really liked how you could press the home button on the older LG models and the apps would pop up from the bottom to contemplate a change before you have to commit. But now it's just a hard out to the home screen. Then it's sort of confusing to go from the source to the home page to the apps and back home. For me, if I press back out of an app, I'd like it to return to the home page and not the last input you had the TV on, but not a huge deal. The Sony A90J has Google TV, which is basically Android OS with a little facelift to help navigate through the content. All the apps and shows are arranged a little better with personalized info first and then movies and other tabs across the top. I like the Google TV better, except I keep getting booted out of Netflix after a minute or so into a movie. And I don't use the native apps much, but I saw some others having a similar issue, and I'm sure it'll get worked out eventually. Both TVs do offer sort of an ambient mode, although I'm not sure I'd want to have either OLED left on long term. One thing I do get asked often about is the eARC, or Enhanced Audio Return channel, on these TVs. And I have good news on that front, which is they're both functional and working with my Sonos Arc soundbar. And I didn't dive too far into it, but I got Dolby Atmos on my Sonos app from both my Apple TV and the native apps, so that's a good start. And the sound and the OS are important, but I'm sure many want to see which TV looks better, so let's talk about that. And since we were talking about what works and what doesn't, it's a good segue into gaming, because this is the content that we can most quickly differentiate because of the features, or lack thereof, if not the picture quality. Even with the two HDMI 2.1 ports, Sony has failed to provide VRR in their 2021 TVs at launch. So that's still a work in progress for gamers if you want 4K at 120 with VRR. For most people, it's likely not a big deal because gaming at 4K 60 is just fine. But others would disagree if they're playing fast-paced games or coming from PC gaming. The LG G1 has all you can handle regarding gaming features. The 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, instant game mode, VRR, FreeSync, G-Sync. LG is so bored with winning for gamers that they've added a game optimizer so you can further tweak your game experience with modes depending on the genre, as well as the ability to manipulate the white and black levels as well as a blue light filter just for game mode. The two TVs are pretty close in picture quality, and it's hard to determine if game mode in LG is a richer picture or if Sony just has more detail. Both could be true, but the Sony seems to be like it's a bit washed out in game mode, and overall I just preferred the LG for gaming. So let's check out SDR, which is your typical movies and sports. I want to detail a few specific concerns I had regarding these TVs, mainly upscaling, motion, and brightness. And right off the bat I noticed that in these modes, which are custom for Sony and ISF bright for the LG normally has a brighter picture in SDR. The Sony seems content with offering a solid, accurate picture with great upscaling, but it's not any brighter than OLEDs of the past in SDR. I do see a lot of detail and I thoroughly enjoy watching the A90J in pretty much any content. But the LG G1 is definitely punchier in SDR. When watching basketball, the court was much brighter, and the G1 seemed to have a brighter full screen when watching hockey. And speaking of sports, if you put the G1 in sport mode, then it's really bright and saturated, which I think is fine for watching sports in cable. If you look at Draymond's jacket here, it's pretty impressive on the G1. Definitely very colorful and saturated, and maybe people might think it's too much, but I like it. But back to the custom versus ISF mode, the Sony has better upscaling, it handles noise better, and the motion is better if not the same. And people have asked me about motion stutter on the A90J, and I'd say it's similar to OLEDs of past. Not better, not worse. You can change the motion interpolation settings to your liking, but I found both TVs fine for my viewing, but the Sony seemed to look a bit smoother once I got them dialed in. So overall in SDR, the LG G1 might be preferred for watching brighter sports or bright content, but the Sony A90J upscales better, it has fantastic detail, and to be honest, the SDR can easily be mistaken for HDR, so I'm moving on. The HDR is where I feel like the OLEDs earn their paycheck. As I said before, the better the source you feed these TVs, the better they look. And animated movies are some of the best to showcase in a review. First, the LG G1 is in Cinema Home and the Sony is in Dolby Vision Bright. These are the modes that I feel are best to watch HDR content in while being very accurate. When you match them up against each other in those modes, the Sony A90J is definitely brighter. Both TVs look impressive, and I think it's a fair statement to say that for the most part, most people would be very happy with either of these TVs. But there are some differences, and we'll talk about them. And in comparing them, it might be possible that the A90J may look a little too bright, or the G1 might look like it's lost a bit of detail. But that's just the difference in brightness and how they're viewed on my camera. But you definitely can see that the A90J has the brightness advantage. And we've talked about some of this in the live streams, which you should definitely catch if you want to get a lot of info from many illustrious guests. But it's not like the A90J is a QLED where it can push 2000 nits full screen. The differences versus older OLEDs and even the G1 is the smaller highlights. Yes, the A90J looks brighter and it's noticeable in person, but where it excels is in the 1% and even smaller highlights. In my opinion, the major thing that was missing from OLEDs was the HDR punch, and a lot of the detail was dulled down when comparing to an LCD LED TV. But with the A90J, you get a ton of sparkling detail in bite-sized portions all over the screen. And with the heatsink, it just seems to dazzle for hours. I think Sony hit the nail on the head with regards to solving HDR issues of the past, even if there's still some room for improvement on the full screen brightness. So yes, the LG G1 is brighter than the LG C10 or G10, and I would be pretty content with the LG G1 as my movie watching TV, but the A90J takes it to another level, really dominating its predecessors, while again looking super sharp with a ton of detail, while having motion that's similar or better than the LG G1, depending on how you like it. So I wanted to finish up with a couple things to think about when it comes to selecting one of these two TVs. First, they're both new panels, so the G1 is brighter even if it doesn't have the heatsink. And both of the TVs have a bit of a pink tint to them when viewed off angle. So when you're at the extreme like this, the picture goes a little red. So it's not awesome, but it is what it is. The C1 there at the bottom right is the older panel, so you can see it doesn't have the tint to it. Another thing to think about is your use of the TV. Will you need to turn it left or right? Will you want to mount it flush against the wall? These are important things to think about. If you want a TV for a tabletop, the LG G1 doesn't come with feet in the box. So you have to buy them separately, but after installing this G1 on the wall and then thinking about your typical customer probably wanting to turn the TV left or right here and there, I see it worth the money to actually put it on a stand just like any other TV because it still looks really cool and is a solid buy. And at the same time, that LG mount is a bit of a disappointment. But for that flat gallery look against the wall, it does the trick, and many people will mount it on the wall and probably never touch it again. On the flip side, the Sony A90J has the really wide feet, so you better have a place to put it or you'll just have to mount this sucker too. Either way, you get those really nice speakers vibrating out at you, and the added heatsink makes it a brighter TV for HDR movies. The gaming is fine for most, but Sony needs to get it together to be taken seriously by serious gamers. I think the Sony A90J is in a solid position to be the best TV of 2021, but the price tag is no joke. It's nearly $1,000 more for a 65-inch over the G1, and at the larger size of 83-inch, which is all there is, it's 2 times the price of the 77-inch LG G1. So no direct competition there, as you'll likely have a few reasons to either go with the 77-inch gallery series on the wall or an 83-inch Sony A90J with feet and wall mounting or gaming or whatever. You got a lot of things to consider, including gaming, movies, or what other content you're gonna watch. But I hope this video has made it a bit easier to make that purchase. Let me know in the comments which TV and why. Definitely smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell, and watch one of the install videos so you can be the installer.